Do you have an innovative idea you believe society would greatly benefit from, yet struggling to raise equity? Fortunately, today we have answers and solutions for the challenges you're currently facing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the official Scaleupstream Podcast. I'm your host, Hugh Seth. Joining us today is Angel Investor Sal Lucido, founder of AssurX, a multi-million-dollar international business software company. Sal is also the founder and lead developer of Bizpo, an iPhone app development company, which has designed, developed, and released several successful Apple iPhone applications. And of course, outside of being Tony Stark himself, Sal is a business lecturing professor at California State University, Montero Bay. Sal, it's a pleasure to have you on today. Welcome.
Thanks, Hugh. Good to be here. Pleasure to be with you as usual. I just love talking to you and hanging out. So this will be fun.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So let's dive in then. Sal, like I mentioned, there's just so much going on. Your resume is just very impressive. And I just want you to please run us through your journey as a founder and what has really got you through this point. If you could run us through the inception all the way through founding AssurX and just please just lay it on us.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for saying that. I always feel like there's a lot of times what happens to you in life is what's in front of you. And it's when I look back at how I started a software company, how I got into Scaleupstream, for example, how I got into teaching at CSUMB, Monterey Bay. It all just sort of presented itself. And I feel lucky and fortunate to have had this journey because it's been so rewarding. And now I'm trying to give back. But it really all started with, I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and got my degree in engineering. And electrical engineering back then was a big deal because the Silicon Valley was kicking in with, Intel and all these high-tech companies. But what I learned at the end of my senior year at Cal Poly was it went from electronics to software, because the very first thing, as soon as electronics got really powerful enough, you pretty much just programmed in your hardware. And you really didn't have to work at the bits and bytes. So that was my first experience with the ground shifting from under me. And I'm really good with that. I sort of like change and I like learning. And that's kind of the theme of my life, and also the theme of what we really, do when we mentor startups is these ground shifts. So it went from hardware to software then. And then I became an engineer for quite a while in the Silicon Valley, so working on new projects. And then all of a sudden, they needed software to run the company, to actually keep track of things. And I was just working for them. So I wrote it. I learned the program language. I wrote it for them. I sold it to them for free. And then on the side, that was AssurX. That was the beginning of AssurX.
Right.
And I actually wrote it because I was a little bit lazy and I didn't want to install it anywhere. I wrote it so that it was basically streaming from my server way back in 1998. And they didn't call it cloud back then, but I didn't want to update things. I just wanted, I didn't want them to install things. So I just streamed it from my server and I wrote it browser based. And then that was the other shift, software as a service was not a thing, but I wrote it that way because it was just easier for me. And all of a sudden, like Siemens Medical and all these other big companies started buying the software. And I had a day job, like I was working. And pretty soon I had 5 or 6 employees, and I told my, employer, I have to go. I've got this company that grew up from the software I made for you. So I left them, and then it grew and grew. And that journey was another place where the ground kept shifting. A lot of regulations for companies that were in life science, and a lot of regulations for companies like PG&E that are in energy. So we wrote for them, and then boom, it took off. hired more people. And then I always say, hire people smarter than you,
Right.
which to me was an easy thing to do. So
Yeah. Okay.
I really just let them be the king. And I just kind of moved on and started writing apps,
Right.
Apple apps and learning software. So today we're in another ground shift for anyone starting up a business where, AI, machine learning, crypto,
Mhm.
blockchain.
Mhm.
I'm deep into that now because it's so much fun and I love learning. And so that's kind of where I landed with Scaleupstream and with
Yeah.
helping folks that are startups look at, how to succeed.
Right. So it seems like you sort of stumbled upon entrepreneurship.
Totally. Yeah. My dad was an entrepreneur. So
Okay.
I got it from him. I got the bug from him. We always, I think the two things that entrepreneurs have are, one is they're sort of never satisfied.
Mhm.
They're sort of always looking at, can we do it better?
Right.
And then the other thing is they're not afraid of risk. They
Right.
actually, I always feel like I dig risk. I love it. I love this,
Yes. Yes.
it's like the thing that gets my heart going. And so, a lot of times we'll see startups and entrepreneurs that are kind of have that look on their face, like they're freaking out. I just talked
Yeah.
to somebody the other day,
Yeah.
the guy that did coinage, and he had that little, look on his face. And I said, look, you're doing great. You got to embrace this is a great feeling. This is what we thrive on.
Right.
So enjoy it. And then he was like, you're right. I do like this. So it's just kind of all where you come from.
What I really appreciate about you, Sal, is just how empathetic you are when you're dealing with founders. That's not always the case, and I'm sure founders that have pitched enough investors will know this to be true, right? And I really appreciate and I really admire how empathetic you are when you're dealing with founders, because it can be a really nerve-wracking process, pitching an investor, not knowing what the turnout would be, and also just the fact that you're sharing something so personal to you with someone else is just such an intimate thing, So I always admire how empathetic you are. Now, it's also very fascinating how, one, you're on the side of the spectrum where you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder yourself. So I suppose that's where that empathy may come from. But then you're also an investor, right? So you get to see both sides. And also you're someone that's successful on both spectrum as well. So that's really cool. And that's what really fires me up and excites me about this conversation here we're having. So then my question for you then is, what are investors looking for in startups, right? And not only in startups, but also in the founder themselves?
Yep. Good question. Thank you, by the way, for the compliment on being empathetic. I agree with you. I feel like, when you said, what are they looking for in a founder themselves? That's the key, is people don't buy things, they buy into people.
Correct.
Society is all about us, because if you think about it, when you start a company or you're an investor in a company, you're hanging out with that team.
Yeah.
And you're going to want to invest in something where you like the group of people you're with. You just dig them. Like, I just want to, we could all fail, but we had fun, right? So I would say what an investor is looking for is twofold.
Okay.
One is kind of the black and white, like, I want to make money. I mean, the return on investment is important to me, because why would I be doing this if I wasn't, looking to make money? And I always tell people, making money can feel like a bad thing, and you can feel a little bit guilty, like, oh, everything's about making money. But the key thing there is understanding that we exchange value. I mean, humans, all societies have always traded, whether we traded wampum as, Indians or furs or wherever we were. And you're not going to trade a fur for something that is, like a rock, right? Why would I do that? So as a entrepreneur, always remember, the investor wants to know, is there a trade happening with your product
Mhm.
that is valuable, right? And a lot of times that's the key there. That's why giving your stuff away for free or, lowering expectations on yourself is a bad thing. You want to raise them and see if somebody will buy it. Like, well, will
Right.
you buy that? So that's the first thing is they're looking to have a return on investment.
Right.
And is this a
And
smart
how much return exactly? What are we looking at? What are the margins and what period of time? Because we do know that the startup model is all about speed, and there's typically a time period in which investors are looking to get a certain amount of return. So would you walk us through that as well as you're continuing with this?
Yeah. So it varies a little bit because you can get return in different ways. But I would say, 3 years is kind of the window.
Mhm.
And because startups go through multiple stages, you might make money at each stage. So, if you're in a super early startup where you're right at the beginning, you're knowing that you're not going to really have a return until, 3-4 years down the road, but you're
Right.
probably going to go through several situations where your stock value is going to go up because later investors, later rounds, they'll pay more for that stock. So you're good with that. If you're a late round company and you already have stock, then they're going to expect to make, more than what you can make in the stock market, right? So if you think about it right now, you get a CD, you get 2%, 1%. In the stock market, maybe you can get 10% if you're doing well. If you were in Bitcoin, you get 100%. But it's got to be more than just a passive investment.
Correct.
That's the key. And then the second thing that people are looking for is, like you said, in the person they're investing in is, we don't feel like every startup is an expert in everything, but they should be an expert at their product or their industry. And then they should be smart business people in that they have a team that they've surrounded themselves with that can make it happen.
Right.
So that's really what an investor also is looking for is, do I trust this person to build a team, to build this company and lead this ship?
Right. Okay. Okay. For sure. Now, when we're talking about pitching and also discussing the matters of raising equity, well, something that's very important is obviously pitch decks, right? And this is something that you personally work on and help founders develop or fix or whatever it may be, right? Now, please walk us through an effective pitch deck and what should be on it. What are some popular frameworks or components that should be in the pitch deck to consider it a successful one or something that is easy to follow along with?
Yeah. Good question. The key is to understand the purpose of the pitch deck. That's number one. And most entrepreneurs feel like the purpose is to tell the investor everything. That is not the purpose.
Right.
It's like there's got to be a little mystery in life, right? And the goal of the pitch deck is to get the investor to understand your idea and the problem you're solving and why you're different and why you're going to succeed, and then have them by the end of the pitch deck wanting to talk more. Okay.
Right.
So you don't have to reveal everything. That's the key in a pitch deck, is to reveal just enough so that they're intrigued, they're hooked, they're curious, and now I want to know more.
Right.
You're always selling as an entrepreneur, as a business person. You're always selling. Never forget that. So when you're doing your pitch deck, you're selling yourself, you're selling your idea, and you never close a deal in the first meeting. A good salesman knows I'm going to close the deal in the next meeting.
Right.
Not this one.
Right.
So I think the key is to get the infection that you have as an entrepreneur to that investor and to deliver it. Because, we're all infected by our idea. We love our idea. We don't sleep at night. We spend too much time on it. I'm
guilty of that.
Right? Your significant other and your friends are like, well, what are you doing? Why are you? I'd rather be doing this. You got to bottle that infection and hand it to the investor in a way that they can deal with it.
Right.
So that's the first key. The second key to remember is the investor really wants to understand after they get your idea, and it doesn't take long to give it to them.
Right.
They really want to understand the mechanics of how this idea scales. They don't, you're all excited about your idea. So let's say you started a company that Airbnb, for example, let's say you started Airbnb. Your idea is letting people sleep on a couch, right? And
Right.
having money be made. Well, the pitch for that is like 5 seconds of the Airbnb idea. Look, there's thousands of couches. They're empty and people need to make money. And and right now they don't know it, but they're going to be willing to make money by letting someone sleep on that couch. Okay, I'm done. That's the idea. Okay. Now I got to tell you how it's going to scale. What we're going to do is we're going to build, we built an app. The app connects, people that have couches with people that want couches. And here's the team, and here's how we're going to grow it over the next 3 years. And it's going to be worth this much money.
Right.
So most of the time is spent on understanding how the business is going to succeed and very little on the business.
Right. On the product, the business. And that's the funny thing, because we often see founders spending more time talking about the product itself. And it's like, as investors, we may not ever use this product, right? Yeah, the product matters if you're talking to customers, but like to investors, we want to see what's the return, and we want to focus on the vision and what's going on with that. So I'm just very thankful that you brought that up. Now, along the lines of that, so we're discussing pitch decks and what should be in there. Also, what about the whole pitching side of things, right? Let's say you come across an investor randomly, or you're at a party or whatever it may be, and you're trying to get this idea off. What should be focused on, right? In that quick 3 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever time you have, what should founders focus more of their energy on when they have such a short period of time to explain what they have going on?
Yeah, to me, that's a key piece, which is why I started a thing where we talk about elevator pitches, and had a couple of sessions where we just bring everybody together to do give their elevator pitch, and then we react to it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think the elevator pitch used to be because you might be in the elevator with Bill Gates, right? So it's like, oh, I got to explain this to him quickly because he has a lot of money. And by the time I get to the 5th floor, we're done. I don't have any time.
Right.
But really, the elevator pitch has 2 purposes. One is to focus, to get your idea across quickly and effectively. But number 2, to get yourself to understand and focus your mind and your group of your team on what the vision really is. Because remember, when you start a business, you're sort of distracted by shiny objects, like, oh, we could do that, and we can go after this, we can do this, and we could be really cool if we did this.
Yeah.
And your distraction costs you time.
Yeah.
So the elevator pitch is not just for getting your idea across to someone that might be an investor, or someone that might join your team, or someone that might be a customer. It's for you to focus. It's to get you to focus.
Right.
And so I always notice that when the elevator pitch or the quick talk is too rambling or too sort of convoluted, it's really because the startup founder hasn't narrowed in yet on a specific area.
Okay.
That makes sense. So if
it does.
it's like you ever go and have a professor teach you, and it's like, I'm confused. Well, a lot of times because the professor doesn't know exactly what's going on. So if they haven't solidified their ideas in their head, then it's going to be hard to transfer that knowledge.
Right. So it's very important to have everything conceptualized, a direct, would you say then, something that's very enticing to the investor that's going to raise their antenna, and maybe a pain point, or But then the question is, every investor may have something that's interesting to them or may not be, and you may not know which investor you may come across in a short period of time.
Right.
So then again, what are you focusing more on the numbers, or are you just focusing on just these major strategic points that, like you said, couches, more money, everyone's going to be doing it, side hustle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, I think
More so
yeah.
that route.
So there's two things that you asked. Great question there, because there's two things. The pitch is meant to hook the right person. That's the whole goal, to hook
Right.
the right person. So
Right.
you don't really worry about what sort of genre of investment the investor's in. You're
Okay.
looking to hook. So if you are in front of somebody that loves software companies and you're a hardware company,
Mhm.
you should make sure that your hook doesn't get that person, because they're software. They love software and you're hardware. So, if your pitch filters that person out, that's good.
Okay.
That's a good thing. Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't remember, we only have so much time. We want an investor that loves hardware projects, let's say.
Right.
So we don't worry about them. We worry about making sure that what we say filters out and gets to the right person.
Right.
So that's the confidence you have in your own thing, where you say, this is a refrigerator sized, apparatus that will keep your entire business, clean of germs. Okay. So now the key is that person knows, I love software. I'm really not going to invest in you, but I know that Jim or Mary loves hardware. I'm going to ask you to go talk to them. So
Right.
you effectively filtered out the correct people. Now, if they love hardware, you got them, right?
Right.
And then the second thing to remember is you're not trying to get them to understand what you do. What you're trying to do is get them intrigued by what you do. Okay.
Yes.
That's different. So, for example, there's a company that makes insecticide out of oranges.
Right.
And so when they're pitching, their pitch was literally, did you know that ants hate oranges? Well, that fact is going to lead to a multi-million-dollar company that I'm founding.
Oh, wow.
Okay, see what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
You're like, wait, first of all, you kind of confused me there at the beginning, so I'm intrigued. And then second of all, I want to know more about how you're going to make that fact into a multi-million-dollar company.
Right.
I didn't have to tell you everything. I just kind of got you intrigued. I sold you on kind of the key idea. Maybe I didn't even say a pain point. Everybody knows ants, in your kitchen or something is a pain.
Yeah.
So the key with that pitch, which is what I go through in my, workshop, is turning on system 2 in your brain.
Okay.
Your brain has 2 systems.
Right.
One of them is the thing that's on autopilot. It's like, when you drive your car, when you brush your teeth, when you do things that are routine, your brain tries to conserve energy. And so you're always on autopilot. You're on system 1. We want to get people on system 2 because that's what wakes them out of autopilot. And you'll notice when people are pitching and pitch decks, or when they're giving their elevator pitch, if it sounds like too polished, too sort of like what everybody else says with, return on investment is going to be sort of turn off. You put them into system 1.
Right.
I say to you, did you know ants hate oranges? Like, you're in system 2. I just got you out. You notice that? Like, I pulled you out of system 1.
Right.
And now you're like, okay, wait, this is unexpected.
Right.
So that's one of the keys, is to get people out of, the more you say things the way you're supposed to say them, people don't listen to you.
Right.
So that's the key.
Okay. So disrupting the pattern of thinking. You know what I really like about what you said previously is that elimination process. Sometimes sound advice can be contradictory to what we initially believe, right? Because I'm sure most founders, they want to come in and they want any investor that it could get, right? So why would I eliminate investors when that's who I need, right? So I love that you brought up this thing of this elimination process, because it's a challenging philosophy, right? And something tough to swallow. But that tells me right there, there's something very important with that ingredient right there. So I'm so thankful that you brought that up.
No,
Now,
you nailed it. Let me just say this, because I
okay,
just was talking to one of the Scaleupstream investors about this.
okay,
And he has this great product idea, and it's going to require kind of a lump sum of money to get like a regulatory license.
right,
And so he was just trying to get that money. I said, wait, time out. You're looking for an investor that gets the value of that regulatory license.
right,
And you want that to know that they see the value in getting that. Because if you get that,
right,
your company's gonna be worth a ton, and it's really hard to get. It's really, and he had a way of getting it. He had like already worked that out. So I said, you got to flip the script. Forget trying to entice them. You want to know, after you get them excited on your idea, quickly find out, can they help you get that license? Do they get the fact that that's valuable?
right.
And he was like, oh, so I'm discriminating. I'm the one
Yes,
interviewing them.
yes,
See what I mean?
yes,
Now, here's the tricky key with that. As soon as an investor sees you interviewing them to see if they can help you get to gold, they go, that's a businessman.
right.
That's a businesswoman.
I love it.
See what I mean? So you're subliminally putting out there, I'm not having you interview me. I'm interviewing you.
Yes,
See?
yes,
And that sends a subliminal message that you're a business person.
yes. I love that. And that also reminds me of what we're doing here at Scaleupstream, right? Empowering the founder, right? Giving founders that sense of, yes, I'm worth something. I'm the one with the idea here. This startup that I've been working on is actually going to be something, and I really love that empowerment aspect, because in times past, all the power was in the hands of the investors, right? And there's an imbalance with that, right? Obviously, there's a respect thing, and obviously investors are to be respected and have a powerful positioning to a certain extent. But still, it's just such a invigorating thing knowing that as a founder, I have power, right? I have the opportunity of choice, right? And part of what comes to mind, even with that, to go even deeper, when you have the right investor, what ends up happening is that it's not just about the money. And I think sometimes startups, they mix that up. Founders mix that up. They think it's just about the money, but it's more than that. It's the mentorship, it's the connection, it's the network. It's someone that understands the product or has a team that has worked on that product before that can really help expedite that process, right? Mm-hmm. So now that leads me to my next question. When we were talking about teams, right? How often an excellent idea comes about, the founder is very competent, the product and everything is good, the margins are looking good, but they don't have a team, right? They're a solopreneur. And so what are your thoughts on that? And would you ever dare fund a startup that's ran by a solopreneur?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is a good question, because if somebody is a sole proprietor and they have nobody on their team, mm-hmm. there's a problem, because if that person goes away, let's say they win the lottery or whatever, then the whole company's gone. Like I have, so that's why investors won't, they're very shy about that, and they want to see you surrounded by a team,
right?
Because a one-man show or a one-woman show is just not a safe investment for anybody,
right?
And a lot of founders, once you point that out, they go, "Oh yeah, you're right. That I wouldn't do that,"
Yeah.
But number two, remember, the team thing is kind of key in that we want to see that recruited or got other people excited about this, not just me. So
Right.
I want to see if you have no one in your, sort of in your squad or in your team, that means you haven't sold other people on this idea yet. So go do that, go. And it doesn't have to be the perfect team. This is the key, is it
Right.
just has to be a team.
Mhm.
So let's say you've got a really good programmer, you're really good at, let's say, it's a pharmaceutical product or something, you're good at that. And let's say that you're missing, somebody that's in law or legal, or because there's a lot of regulations, let's say.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. Just what the key is, you say, this is my team, this is my board, this is my team, and here's where we're going to add, some key folks. The investor loves to see that, because it's like, oh, I know somebody, I know the perfect person that could fill that spot for you.
Right.
So remember, the key is always, if it sounds too good and it seems like you got the perfect group, then it is too good, right? It's like too good to be true. So when you're pitching your team or your idea, you always want to say, these are the strong points. This is what we got down. Here's the part we're going to fill in. And that's what we're going to be doing with the money and with the relationship with the investor, right?
Right.
So it's like the investor listening to the person says, oh, I want to be on that journey with you. I think I can help.
Right.
But if you say everything's perfect, like it's a huge industry, it's $1 billion opportunity, I've got the perfect team, we're ready to go. Well, it's like, well, hold on. Why do you need me?
Yeah.
If it's so perfect, go.
Right.
So that's the key, is a little humility in there, but not embarrassment by it, not feeling bad about it, but actually putting it there, because that's a good business person that knows, here's the holes, and
Right.
we're going to fill them, and here's what we got.
Right. And then we also come across founders that act almost like CIAs, right? They don't want to share anything. They may want you to sign an NDA. Now, is that even worth your time?
Yeah.
If a founder approached you and wanted you to sign an NDA, is that something that you're really interested in doing? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Or even other investors? Is this something that investors are even interested in?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I do, I do work with a lot of folks that are afraid to tell their idea to people. Like, oh, it's going to get stolen.
Yeah.
And I always say, remember, the idea, a lot of ideas, they're just already out there.
Yeah.
The difference between the idea and success is not really as much the idea, it's the energy and the effort and the blood, sweat, and tears behind it.
Right.
Sort of the expertise. So I always say, if there's some secret sauce, you don't have to divulge that, but you do need to divulge the idea,
right,
and not be afraid of people stealing it, because it takes so much work to get things to actually come to fruition.
right,
So many hard nights and so many just sort of, just stress. No one's going to steal your idea. It's like they have enough to do. So I always just tell people, don't worry so much about, divulging what you do. If there is a secret component, like let's say you have a recipe or something, fine, you keep that secret. Or, if let's say there's a bunch of information about the stockholders and the shareholders and how much money is on the book, all that stuff, and you feel like you don't want to divulge those names, that's the time for a due diligence NDA behind the, kimono type talk.
right.
So leading with, I need you to sign an NDA, that is a bad move.
Yeah.
So the key is you get them hooked. They want to know more. Let's say they need to know, I want to see all your books. I want to see all of this information that's a little bit sensitive because maybe there's people involved. That's when you say, let's have another meeting. Maybe there's an NDA there for due diligence. But remember, when they sign that, everything goes to them, right? Everything.
Right.
So it's the process. At first, you're just trying to get them to want to go into due diligence.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Then that's where you kind of just figure out whether or not this is a secret or not.
Right, but don't lead with that,
Yeah.
It's and I thought that really related to the whole team thing, because an idea without execution really isn't anything, right? So starting off on that front, and it also just shows that you don't trust the investor that you're speaking
Yeah.
with, right? It's like, if you
Well,
don't trust me, why are you even approaching me?
it sends another interesting signal. Is, this is the kind of everything we do is subliminal. Okay.
Right.
We're wearing hats. It's like, oh, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, ping, you golf, there's a bridge behind you.
Yeah.
All of these entrepreneurs have to understand, when you're selling, there's just messages flying out of you
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're not saying. Well,
Yeah.
here's an interesting thing about if you're afraid that someone's going to steal your idea and you're leading with an NDA, then you don't understand a key thing about startups. And that is,
Right.
your first idea isn't really the one that ultimately probably wins.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you're like, I'm not going to divulge a secret to you, you don't get the fact that probably, most likely, the thing that you succeed on is just, this is just a seed. So the person that started Groupon,
Yeah.
their first app was nothing like Groupon.
Yeah.
They were doing like a social group type money raising thing, and it wasn't doing well, even though it was kind of fun. They noticed that it's weird, but the part of our company that allows the group to like pledge, and then as soon as a pledge gets above a certain value, it vests.
Right.
That part of the application could be used for coupons, like, if enough people come to want to come to my store and they all sign up, as soon as we get over this value, they all get it. That was the thing that was succeeding, not the social network.
Right.
So they pivoted to
Right.
Groupon. So if they would have been all, I'm not going to, I want you to sign an NDA because, this social thing is really going to be hot. You didn't understand the fact that you're probably pivoting.
Right.
So
And that's where the whole mentorship and that the investor is going to offer anyways come into play, right? So that's a really good point right there. Now, we promised something. We're going to help struggling founders that are struggling to raise equity. We're going to give them some key sauce as to raising equity. Now, what are some things that comes to mind? And then after sharing some of those with us, I would love to also have you share your input on how Scaleupstream has made the process of finding investors a lot more efficient and just an easy ongoing process for startups. If you won't mind sharing a little bit of both with us, please.
Yep. So I think the beauty of Scaleupstream, it's really why I'm so excited about it,
Right.
is that it's a community.
Okay.
And startups feel lonely. Founders feel lonely. They feel inadequate and lonely a lot of times, and stressed out. And all you want is to be around a group of people that get it, like other entrepreneurs and mentors like us that sort of say, go for it, you can fail. Failure here is fine. We'll get you there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the key thing, is just to not feel lonely, to not feel the stress all alone. I was talking to one of the startups tonight, and he was like, well, I really need these people. And until I get that, I'm not, and I said, time out. You're the captain of the ship.
Yeah.
There is no magic person that's coming along.
Yeah.
So just hearing that, you could just see his face just sort of change. Like, you're right. I'm looking for this thing, this expert, and it's me. I'm already here. And I said, you can hire people, you can plug people into spots, but it's you. It's okay that you don't know everything, but you're the expert.
Yeah.
So just hearing that kind of a thing. And then also when they're pitching and we're giving them feedback on their pitch, and they then change their pitch over, several months, even that journey, there's no way you do that without just sort of people to people.
Correct.
And that's what Scaleupstream, I think, offers. That's the best thing. It's just people together, hanging out, trying things out, sharing
Yeah.
their foibles, the investors, banging on them, and then, but not being, evil, but, sort of going, I love you. A lot of times the investor will say, I love your idea, just not explaining it right. Or I
Yeah.
love your idea, but you got to go get it, go get these things solved.
Yeah.
And then the person goes, oh, cool. I feel like I'll go do that. And then let's see, I'll take another run at it. It's not my last run.
Right. No, I could definitely, I definitely concur with that. There's been so many founders that has had an opportunity to pitch on the Scaleupstream platform and just got feedback. And we have regulars coming back, like regularly. And the beautiful thing about this is they get better every time, because and the ones that really get it, they excel so fast. It's just so amazing, because now they're implementing the advices that they've been given. And that just shows someone that's actually having a high willingness to learn and accept change. So, those are some of the things that really stands out to me every time, and some of the value that is really offered. But yeah, Sal, yeah. I really appreciate you joining us here on this podcast. Now, if you have any finishing remark, because again, I know you're very busy, you have a lot to do and a lot of pitches to look over and what have you. So if you have any finishing remark for us, it would be much appreciated if you'd like to share with the community here today.
Yep. Yeah. I would say, just kind of to follow up on what you just said there, an investor is a team member. So when the founder listens to the investor, and really listens, and doesn't try to, sort of solve the problem or show that they know the answer, but actually say a simple thing like, that is a good point, thank you so much.
Right.
The investor goes, I love this person, because they are willing to listen.
Right.
The investor, we've been through a ton of these, we know, and if you're willing to listen and you exhibit that in the pitch, and you stop and you thank them and you get your pen out and you start writing like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's cool. That is good. And so, like you said, the folks that do best in Scaleupstream are the ones that you see progressing, changing, because we said something like, change it to this way, explain that, get rid of this. And when they actually take that advice and change, those are the ones that do well.
Correct.
So I would just say to always remember, it's a learning process, and the startup journey has to be this is so cliche, but I always say it to people, there's no end. I have several startups. One of them is fully staffed. I don't do anything, that it's running on its own. It never ends. Like, now we want to do this. Now we want to do that. And you're always thinking, if I could just get this one thing, it'll be so great. I'll be so done and so happy. If I could just get the investment, or if I could just get this team member, or if I could just get this much revenue.
Right.
No, because then when you're there, there's another piece. So the key is always remember, it's the journey that matters. If you're not enjoying the moment of stress that you're in right now, and risk, and feeling like you're inadequate, and you're trying to get, if you're not enjoying that moment, you got to pause and say to yourself, I got to calm down. Because some of my favorite times were when I wasn't successful and I was working to get successful.
Right.
And I think back on those times like, oh my God, we were writing code and we were sending it back and forth. And we were like, I remember I was selling to somebody. We didn't even have a product, but we were selling to this company that made tires. And they were like, do you have a reference? And they were like, well, we do have some references, but would you be a reference? And they're like, well, we're not allowed to be a reference. Like, I know that's what they said. Like, you're totally like dancing, you know,
yeah.
To me, and we were in the kitchen on a phone, you know, like those are like good times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it builds character.
and that was fun. Like, to me, every moment should be fun.
Right.
So to some level. And so if you're not enjoying the moment you're in, and it doesn't show, like it doesn't exude in your pitch, and it doesn't exude from your body language that you're just like stoked about the imperfect moment you're in, then you got to take a time out and you got to ask yourself, what am I doing?
Right. As the old saying goes, from chaos comes order, you know, and that pretty much explains the startup journey, right?
Totally. It's just the journey. Yes. And you're always in chaos. There's never order. It never will be not chaos. So enjoy the chaos.
Enjoy the chaos. Oh, I love that one. Enjoy the chaos. We can end on that. But before we do end, for those of you watching or going to watch on the previous day, every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, join us at Scaleupstream, and that's www.scaleupstream.com, where you will have an opportunity to pitch active investors live. You're going to have an opportunity of also getting information that will help you with your pitch deck, improving your product, even the confidence to pitch investors, whether it's randomly or as you're advancing. It could be from the pre-seed all the way to series A, B, and so forth and so on, right? So you don't want to miss out on this opportunity. And you've already had an experience with one of our amazing investors at Scaleupstream, Sal, Mr. Humble. So he's not going to agree with that, but he really is. So take advantage of that. And we appreciate you joining us today. So Sal, you have a really good one. Thank you so much, right?
Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.